What's going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of the FF Ball Busters podcast. My name is Will. Joining me is my co-host Eric, and today we are going to talk some preseason Week 1 takeaways and news. But before we get into that, Eric, you got anything for the people? How you feeling, dog?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited. Football is back officially. I'm ready to get into the swing of things and talk about some preseason takeaways. But also, before we get into the meat of the video, we are trying to reach our subscriber goal of 500 subscribers before the regular season starts. And that starts with you guys. If you guys enjoy the content that we've been putting out for you guys so far, if you've watched the channel and you haven't subscribed yet, we'd really appreciate it very much if you could subscribe to the channel and help us reach that goal. We got tons and tons more stuff for you guys to get ready for your fantasy drafts this upcoming season. So stick with us and let's have some fun.
Absolutely. And with that being said, we can go ahead and start this off. We got a great picture of Mr. Sammy Football up here at the top.
Love to see it.
Love to see it. We're starting off with the Houston Texans, New England Patriots takeaways. One of the big news, I guess the biggest things from this was C.J. Stroud. I guess was one of the bigger stories from this game, his performance, or at least like the lack thereof. What do you think about it?
I mean, this is kind of to be expected. One rookie quarterback in his first NFL action, especially behind an offensive line as terrible as what we saw from them in that Week 1 preseason game. He was just under pressure constantly. Obviously, you'd like to see him play a little bit better than what he did. Fairly bad interception that seemed like a poor read from C.J. Stroud there. But I'm not too shocked. And as far as like redrafts, he wasn't on my radar anyway. But this doesn't scare me off for dynasty purposes at all.
Absolutely. And then, yeah, it's just one of those things where we expect to see some growing pains. We expect to see some stuff. If they came out and they were perfect, that would be kind of unheard of. So it is good to see that at least there's some room to grow for sure. And one of the
Yep.
bigger stories, I guess, also from this game was the use of Devin Singletary in this game, and Dameon Pierce not being used this game. So he was among one of like a few players, vets at least, that were given the night off. Devin Singletary kind of operated as the primary running back to start the game. Uh, in terms of indicators, this kind of indicates that Devin Singletary is more of a handcuff to Dameon Pierce, I guess, than more of a change of pace back like we thought he was going to be in this offense. That's kind of role has gone to guys like Dara Bungawale or Mike Boone.
Yeah, we were a little bit worried that they would split some rushing work, Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary, and also that Singletary might take over some of the third down role, the passing work. That didn't really seem to be the case, like you mentioned. Devin Singletary actually came off the field in third down situations that the Texans had in this first preseason game, and so yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good indicator for Dameon Pierce and his role in this offense. One more thing to talk about with the Texans side of the ball, Tank Dell was
Mm-hmm.
getting a ton of hype from what we saw from him. 11 snaps, 7 routes run. Um, he caught a touchdown pass, which was kind of crazy. The ball like bobbled up and bounced, and he still managed to come down with it. He also had a nice slant that he took for a decent gain. Obviously encouraging to see. I still kind of have the same feeling about him that I did in rookie draft season, just that we've never seen anybody of his archetype or body type succeed in the NFL as talented as he is. Um, so I think this is probably a good sell high opportunity in Dynasty if you're rostering Tank Dell.
Yeah, I 100% agree because this is not even to mention the fact like Robert Woods and Noah Brown did not play. So that kind of shows they're already kind of ahead of Tank Dell. You still got guys like Nico Collins, who's a returning starter. You got John Mechie, who more of a project player for them as well, but also coming back this year, able to play as well. Has been seeing some play in 11 personnel with the starters, so he may have that slot role himself even. So it
Yeah.
seems like Tank Dell has quite a few people he's got to get through if he wants to see any meaningful playing time.
Yeah. All
Then
right.
taking a look at some more stuff, Dalton Schultz, Texan starter. He played a little bit, but there's not really too much news there really. On the Patriots side of the ball, Juju didn't really play. Tyquan Thornton they're seen as him being behind a lot of people right now in terms of having
Yeah.
to battle through a lot. Keyshawn Butte was out there doing a lot of cardio, essentially.
Yeah.
Uh, we're hoping he gets more play. But seeing as the fact that like Juju sat, Devontae Parker sat, and Kendrick Bourne all took the night off, I feel like that's the three that they're probably rolling with in terms of their starters.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Honestly, there wasn't too much to take away from the New England side of the ball, in my opinion. I guess, obviously Ramondre sat, and I feel like the backups behind him didn't really prove to be that inspiring. So that gives me even more confidence that this team is going to sign a veteran running back and bring them into the mix. But that's really the main takeaway from me from the Patriots.
We're taking a look at the Minnesota Vikings Seattle Seahawks game. Biggest takeaways here: Jordan Addison started the game and played with the majority of the snaps with the starters. But of course, Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne did not play. There's no reason for them to really be out there. They're already established. Jordan Addison also made a really good catch on the sidelines. It was ruled incomplete, and the play wasn't reviewed, but that was definitely a catch.
Absolutely toe drag swag.
Yeah.
He was balling. It was a great catch. Yeah, totally agree. Jordan Addison looked great out there. In terms of the Seattle side of the ball, I think most of the takeaways are going to be rookie related for this game. You mentioned Jordan Addison already, but Jackson Smith and Jigba also had himself a decent debut. Was pretty happy with how he looked. And Zach Charbonnet came back healthy and also looked really good on the ground, really powerful. Got a little bit of work in the receiving game as well. So it gives us a little pause about Kenneth Walker and kind of the involvement of these two guys. But yeah, good things from both of the rookies on Seattle's side of the ball.
Yeah, he was looking pretty powerful after the catch, too. Ran through that guy's face.
Absolutely.
Next game up on the docket, we got the Packers and the Bengals. Some of the key takeaways from this: Jaden Reed is established, we feel like, as number 3 wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, and they also feel the same. And Jordan Love, he looked pretty comfortable back there, all in all, you know? Didn't look bad, didn't look like he was having a hard time making reads. Pretty comfortable back there in the pocket. And then Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, still the top 2 on the depth chart. Luke Musgrave seems to be pulling ahead in the tight end conversation in that competition too. So he was out there every snap with the starters. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, encouraging to see kind of all around for the Packers there. I still have some question marks about Jordan Love and his ability to lead the offense, but we have plenty more weeks to see that develop. On the Cincinnati side of the ball, honestly, my biggest takeaway wasn't somebody that was on the field. It was actually Joe Burrow, who we saw pregame doing full field sprints. We saw him throwing. We saw him, hitting 3-step drops on that bad calf and stepping up into the pocket and stuff like that. So he seems like he's well on his way to recovery and should be ready for week 1.
Absolutely. And that's all we really got for that game right there. Moving on to Atlanta and Miami. Something that we saw, Mr. A-Chain, he struggled a little bit on the ground, was able to find some success through the air. I think he caught 3 passes for like 41 yards, but on the ground, only able to rack up, I believe, 25. Yeah, 25 over 10 carries. So you want to see that step up for sure. But it's looking like he's pretty far behind in the depth chart in terms of, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson didn't play. Myles Gaskin and Salvin Ahmed played in the first quarter, and then they moved towards mixing in Devin A-Chain. So it seems like he's still got some proving himself to do. This doesn't mean that, I'm low on Devin A-Chain at all. At the end of the day, they ended up using, a 3rd-round pick on Devin A-Chain? Right?
I believe so.
Yeah, they wanted to pick him in the 2nd. So they still have some laurels behind him. It's just whether he's going to be ready or not. And we don't know if he's going to be ready to start the season. So might have to wait a little bit for Devon A-Chain to develop some.
Yeah, I think this might be a little bit more indicative of him just having to take the time to learn a somewhat complicated offense. We've seen with I'm forgetting his name, Mike McDaniel, coming over from San Francisco. It's a fairly advanced rushing attack over there, and so it's going to take him some time to get comfortable and earn the trust of that team. But yeah, I mean, he looked explosive in the passing work that you mentioned, and also as a kick returner, he had a pretty explosive return on one of those. So exciting to see his athleticism in action. I didn't really have too many takeaways from the Falcons side of the ball. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up before we move on?
Not too much. I mean, we kind of know what they are at this point anyways. We kind of know what the team is at this point. There's not too much preseason's going to tell us.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Taking a look at Pittsburgh versus Tampa Bay. Kenny Pickett actually came out looking pretty sharp this game, all things considered. Came out looking decently sharp. Looked like he did take a bit of a step up from last year. It's not saying a whole lot because he wasn't great last year, but it looks like he's definitely more comfortable out there for sure. And the fact that Jaylen Warren was out there and he led in snaps for the starters. Najee Harris didn't play as much. They actually used Jaylen Warren in more of a rushing capability and used Najee Harris to catch passes to start out this game, which was kind of the opposite of how they used them last year. I don't think that's indicative of how they're going to use them going forward. But I think it is just curious to see that like they do seem to want to get Jalen Warren more involved in the running game as well. I think that's more the
Yeah.
indicator there.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned, like you mentioned, about Najee Harris's overall workload.
Hmm.
But Jalen Warren is talented. He's going to be involved in this offense, and if anything were to happen to Najee Harris, if he were to go down with injury, Jalen Warren would be a great backup. Another thing I wanted to mention from this side of the ball, people were really excited about George Pickens and his touchdown, his run after the catch, and stuff like that. And I do think that's important. That's good to see. But I think it kind of overshadowed the fact that Deontay Johnson had a 50% target share on the first drive or two drives or whatever it was with this offense. So I'm more encouraged by what we saw from Deontay in this offense than Pickens.
Deontay stonks are up. Freiermuth stonks maybe down a little bit. It seems like they didn't have him out on the field a whole lot, especially on plays where they needed blocking, because now they have two guys who can block, in Darnell Washington and Zach Gentry. So we're hoping that, that doesn't eat into any of Pat Freiermuth's workload or his ability to be out there on the field, but it is a concern. Allen Robinson, he's still a nobody to me, really. I really need to see them actually use him. I don't know if Allen Robinson's even a football player at this point right now.
Yeah, some confusing things there. Like you mentioned, Allen Robinson tied in routes run with George Pickens for the top spot. Darnell Washington tied in snaps with Freiermuth with the first team offense. So definitely some things to keep track of, keep your eye on in Pittsburgh. From the Tampa Bay side of the ball, I'm not going to go too far with this. I'm not saying I believe in this guy, but Baker Mayfield looked more comfortable than I expected. I think that's as far as I'll go. He looked a little bit better than what I would have expected from him. I think he probably has the starting role locked up, or at least the first shot at it. We'll see what happens throughout the season. But yeah, that's probably my biggest takeaway. There was also some talk about Chase Edmonds being the third down back for this team. I don't know that that's really going to be the case. I think Rachaad White is still going to have most of that role to himself, but maybe a little bit concerning if Chase Edmonds starts to eat into the receiving work over there.
Yeah, I mean, he very well could. Like, it's a possibility, but it's kind of like they're saying right here in this point where it's unlikely that Rachaad White is playing more than 75% of offensive snaps. So, like,
Right.
It's got to go somewhere else. And I think between those two, Keyshawn Vaughn and Chase Edmonds, I think they got two good, third down backs.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next game, we got the Giants and the Lions. My boy, Mr. Sammy Football, Mr. Sam Laporta, already projected to be the Lions starting tight end. We knew it. I knew it before the season even started. I knew it before the draft, but hey. But it's the best case scenario because they clearly put him out there and showed that he is at the front of this depth chart. Even when in two tight end sets, he's still out there on the field as well with Brock Wright. So he has completely overtaken James Mitchell in that aspect. And the fact that he is out here playing as much as he is ahead of all of these guys shows that he is going to sort of have a role once the regular season does start because they're planning on him being out there on the field. He did play a lot more in line than we expected, and maybe we're hoping that, they get a little bit more creative with how they use him. But all in all, the fact that he is out there on the field as much as he was is a great indicator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
for all the rookies.
He was also
really,
yeah, absolutely. He was also second on the team, only behind Jameson Williams in terms of routes run. So that was encouraging to see. And Jameson Williams was on the field for a lot longer than Sam Laporta was. I think that was to be expected because he does have that 6-game suspension. They want to get him some more reps early on to get him kind of prepared for the season. He's another guy I wanted to talk about, though. We need to mention how disappointing his performance was, but also kind of with a caveat that drops aren't really a sticky stat. And we've seen this from other guys that have clearly gone on to overtake that kind of perspective. We saw it with Jamar Chase. We saw it with now I'm blanking, but we've seen
we saw
quite
it with
a few.
Deontay Johnson. They used to call him Deontay Dropson for a while.
Yeah. So we've seen these guys be able to overcome those drop issues. I'm personally still not super high on Jameson Williams, at least how he projects for this season. But dynasty-wise, I'm not going to let the drops really affect how he's valued to me.
I agree with that, especially with like the type of receiver he is. He's not really a possession receiver. So if he can help to kind of eliminate a lot of those focus drops because a lot of the plays I imagine he's going to make are going to be those big splash plays,
Yeah.
So if he's able to just cut down those drops a little bit, I think he'll be fine in terms of how they use him and how they deploy him.
Yeah. And then any significant takeaways from the Giants side of the ball for you?
Darius Slayton and Paris Campbell took the night off, but we kind of saw that coming because there's been so much Paris Campbell hype coming out of training camp.
Right.
Um, other than that, nah, not really. I don't know what this receiver room is. Like they're saying
It's gonna.
this says seemingly crowded receiver room wasn't crowded. None of this really tells me anything still. It's still
No,
just as crowded
no.
as it was before to me. It's just got Darren Waller, who's probably going to get most of the targets at the top of it.
I don't know that we're gonna know until week 1 what this wide receiver pecking order is gonna look like. It's tough to take really too much away from what we saw in week 1 of the preseason.
Yeah, definitely agree there because I don't know what this receiver group is. It's so many rookies and veterans, and there's no in between the super old veterans and the super young guys out there. You know?
Yeah. Also, forgot to mention him. Jahmyr Gibbs looked great. Just
Oh,
real quickly, wanted to mention that he looked fantastic. No concerns with him coming into 2023.
yeah. We knew he was so solid. We didn't even feel a need to talk about it because he just did
Yep.
exactly what we thought he was gonna do.
Exactly.
Moving forward to the Commanders Browns game, we need to monitor Elijah Moore. He did suffer a rib injury. They came back negative, so nothing's broken, but it's something to keep an eye on, especially that sort of soreness, stuff like that. It can affect the player. Not as much for wide receivers because they don't get hit as often as, like, say, a running back or even a quarterback, but it is still something we got to keep an eye on in terms of his comfort out there on the field. And this is also going to suggest that he's behind Donovan Peoples-Jones and Amari Cooper, but we kind of already assumed that. We assumed he was going to have that slot role, and those were going to be the two on the outsides.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and we also got to see him used pretty creatively. He took a rush out of the backfield, which was kind of exciting to see. I think he's still, even though he's not necessarily a starter in 2 wide receiver sets, is going to have a significant role with this team.
Mm-hmm.
We saw David Njoku get a ton of work with the ones while Deshaun Watson was on the field. 11 of the 12 total snaps, and tied for the team lead in routes run and also targets. Pretty encouraging to see from the tight end position there for David Njoku. On the Washington side of the ball, I'm interested to see like how I don't know why I'm having trouble saying it, but like Jahan Dotson versus Terry McLaurin, like who ends up really being the wide receiver one? Obviously, I believe Terry is uber talented, but Jahan Dotson is creeping up in terms of involvement. He outsnapped him and had more routes run and targets in this preseason game.
I think Jahan Dotson might end up getting more of the volume. And even like when we were watching last year to start the season before Jahan Dotson got hurt, he was the guy getting the volume in this offense to start out the season. It wasn't even Terry. It
Yeah,
was him and Curtis Samuel that were leading in targets. So
yeah,
with that being said, Terry's always been the guy who's gotten it done at the end of the day. And he has been getting more and more splash plays, even. Not even been more of a possession receiver like he was used earlier in his career. He's been getting to be more
right.
that deep field threat. But Jahan Dotson, I think he does have a big opportunity to be the leading receiver in this offense.
Yeah, definitely well within the range of outcomes. So that'll be interesting to see how that develops throughout the rest of the offseason.
Absolutely. Moving on to the Broncos-Cardinals game. Broncos in midseason form. But we're hoping they can clean that up. Greg Dulcich was kind of in trouble, didn't play a whole lot, but Adam Troutman was out a lot. And we know Adam Troutman, Sean Payton is a big fan of Adam Troutman, brought him in initially into the league, has him again now on his team, is also a great blocker, so that may also eat into some of Greg Dulcich's playing time. What do you feel about this tight end situation over in Denver?
It's hard to say. There were so many, underlying metrics and stuff that we were counting on with Greg Dulcich. Not only his efficiency when he got the ball, but also his involvement in the offense last year. That I don't want to just throw that out the window. But it's hard not to trust, the first live game action that we've seen under the new coaching staff with Sean Payton there. Like you mentioned, action with Adam Troutman. Adam Troutman was clearly the starting tight end, and Dulcich only got involved in 2 tight end sets. We know that Dulcich, his strength isn't as a blocker. And so when they're looking to get their tight ends out there to block, he's not going to be on the field, but he was great as a receiver. It's definitely not encouraging, but I'm not going to be totally out on Dulcich yet.
Do you see this last quote that's down here? It says, Peyton did refer to Dulcich as a joker in the offense, similar to Taysom Hill or Darren Sproles.
What? That doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any sense, especially with like when you name those two people. That makes zero sense in context. Like, are they planning on
Yeah, I don't.
deploying him as more of like a gadget player?
No, no. Is it, okay, maybe is that even more concerning, honestly? Because he's not gonna get like backfield touches. He's not gonna be Taysom Hill or Darren Sproles. So if he's not involved in single tight end sets, that might even be more scary hearing that.
Yeah, that is a little scary. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know what to
Yeah, I
make of
don't know.
that. Also, someone I didn't know was on this team, Marquez Callaway. Did not know he was on the Broncos. Apparently, he is, and is currently the wide receiver 3, according to these people. They think that he's ahead of Marvin Mims right now at this point in the preseason, and that kind of does throw a wrench into things because Marvin Mims, he was brought in by Sean Payton, but also at the same time, so was Marquez Callaway at a certain point.
Came from the Saints. A
Yeah,
lot of homerism with Sean Payton. Right? I
yeah.
think that one could change. I think Marvin Mims, obviously a rookie, it's going to take him some time to carve out a role, but he's far superior talent-wise to Marquez Callaway in my opinion. So I think at least midway through the season that'll flip over. We saw the ones running a decent amount this game. We saw Russell Wilson with 20 total snaps. They played into the second quarter. Um, Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton pretty much splitting fairly evenly in terms of snaps, routes run, and targets. Not like a clear delineation as to who the wide receiver one is there. Also, I think the main takeaway just from a broad spectrum of the Broncos in general didn't look all that much better than what we saw last season.
They were in mid-season form.
Yep.
Didn't look great,
Yep.
but we're hoping they can clean it up as time goes along. Maybe that was just them experimenting a little bit. That was just for
Hopefully.
funsies.
Fingers crossed.
That's for funsies. Taking a look at the Cardinals side of the ball, there's not really too much news. Rondale Moore played only in the slot. They used Zach Pascal and Michael Wilson mostly on the outsides, which I think that's expected. Michael Wilson's, I think, the only receiver on this team that's over 6 feet tall. So,
Yep.
kind of makes sense. Uh, Other than that, I don't really have anything else. They didn't have Javonte Williams play on the Broncos side of the ball. They had him sit, and they let
Yeah.
Samaje Perine take the reps with the ones.
Yeah, the only real takeaway that I have from the Cardinals side of the ball is that Rondell Moore talked about. There were some people projecting him for an increase in volume heading into his third year with the team now. And yeah, it looks like he's going to be relegated to only the slot role and 3 wide receiver sets.
Oh, and we also got news probably like 10, 15 minutes ago about Zach Ertz. Apparently he's on
Oh
pace
yeah,
to start week 1. Possibly he's been cleared for all football activities. So, I mean, we'll see how that goes, but I'm still banking on Trey McBride being the leading tight end in this offense. But
yeah,
how valuable is the leading tight end in this offense anyways?
doesn't even matter.
Yeah. So, taking a look at the next game, we got the Titans and the Bears. Apparently, Justin Fields, good at throwing screens.
So let's get this out of the way right now. If you let this preseason game change your opinion of Justin Fields for positive or for negative, you're crazy. This doesn't have any impact on where he should be ranked. He threw 3 passes, all screens, for 2 touchdowns and like over 120 yards. It was crazy. And honestly, the first one to DJ Moore, he threw almost in the dirt behind him.
Yeah.
So like, let's not get too carried away.
Yeah.
Love Justin Fields. Going to be a great fantasy asset, but let's not let this impact things too much.
The biggest indicator we saw from this game was in the running back room with Khalil Herbert sort of
Yes.
emerging as the one. That's the news from this game.
And it's consistent from what we've heard throughout training camp in this offseason that he's consistently been the one back there. So it's encouraging to see him continue to get that work. We did see Roshan Johnson come in afterwards, and he looked really good, I thought. It was encouraging how he ran the ball. But he's going to have to do some work to work his way up the depth chart, clearly.
Yeah, and I can see him passing at least Treston Ebner. I think he's going to get there, and he's going to make the team for sure. But it's just, like you said, he's playing from behind just because he was hurt.
Yeah, he's going to be in the mix by midseason, I think, substantially. But yeah, early on, it's going to be Khalil Herbert's backfield.
Yeah. And then taking a look at the Texans side of the ball, Tyjae Spears looked pretty good out there, 6 rushes for 32 yards. He looked better than Hassan Haskins, in my opinion, and apparently in their opinion as well. but he's really just trending to be sort of the handcuff for Derrick Henry, something else we saw coming, because you're not taking volume away from Derrick Henry unless he got used like a third down passing back situation, which maybe, but don't really see that happening too soon at least. And then in terms of the wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins and Traylon Burks both had the day off, which we assume those are the two leading receivers. So it was pretty much a battle for who's going to get that third wide receiver spot. And probably Westbrook Ikine if I had to bet, but these aren't people that you're going to pick in fantasy, I would hope, you know?
The answer to the third wide receiver spot in Tennessee is it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah. Chig also had the day off as well, so that was cool. So he should be the starting tight end. All right, so now we're going to take a look at this Colts-Bills game. Just taking a look over here. Mr. James Cook, unsurprisingly, the early favorite for Buffalo. Okay.
Okay.
No, it's just like I don't understand why this keeps being news. It's just who.
Yeah.
Because like I get Damian Harris is there. He's also hurt. You know, and
Right.
did we think it would like Latavius Murray was going to contend? I feel like what's going to be funny. I got a feeling James Cook and Damian Harris, something's going to end up happening, and Latavius Murray is going to be a stupidly productive person in fantasy this year.
Yeah,
because it happens every year.
Agree.
I feel like it happens.
No,
every
100%. We talked about it. I can't remember which video we mentioned it, but I had been really high on Damian Harris so far this offseason. He's a big target of mine. And now that he's dealing with this injury and just kind of some of the news that we've heard out of training camp, I'm starting to reel that back a little bit. But yeah, Latavius Murray, I think, is going to be, like, if you can get him in the last round, he's going to be a steal. It might be tough to know when he's going to produce, but on a Bills offense where he could see red zone work, like, he's going to be an impact player in fantasy.
Yeah, because he always ends up making an impact. Wherever it is he lands at, he always gets an opportunity and he ends up doing well. And we're always like, oh, man, Latavius Murray's still a guy. And it's like, yeah, he hasn't proven to be anything but yet, especially when he's needed. He's not the running back you want, but he's the one you need.
He's the one you need. What other takeaways do we have from this side of the ball? Dalton Kincaid outsnapped Dawson Knox with the rest of the starters on the field. He also saw the only tight end route run of the group, so that was encouraging to see and kind of matches up with what we've seen out of training camp so far there in Buffalo.
Yeah, completely agree. And as for the Colts side of the ball, we can talk about our boy. How do you feel about Mr. Richardson?
I was encouraged. I wasn't blown away. It wasn't an amazing performance. I wasn't expecting that. Mm-hmm. I think some people might be holding on to the interception a little too much. One, don't really think that was all his fault. They've already come out and talked about it, that Isaiah McKenzie, based on the blitz look that they saw from the defense, was supposed to run a different route than he did. Mm-hmm. And you could see it if you go back and watch the play. Anthony Richardson thought he was going to break his route off a lot sooner. So he went to throw it, and he wasn't even looking back at the ball yet. So his footwork and timing got messed up, and he launched one over his head. That's what led to the interception. You want to see him not throw that ball in that situation and just throw it away or tuck it and run. But the rest of the performance that we saw from him, he seemed in rhythm, on time, decent passing the ball, a few high misses, but that's another thing that we've seen from him that he needs to clean up. Mm-hmm. He looks really good as a runner as well.
Yeah, I think that I wasn't turned off by it at all, like you said. I think if there's any opportunity that the team would want him to take chances or want him to kind of experiment, it would be right now in the preseason. Now, if we see him doing this week one, it's like, all right, I don't know what's going on now, but at least preseason week one, not too bad.
Yep. Not a ton of other takeaways. I guess the backfield is probably worth noting that Deion Jackson and Evan Hull kind of split first team work. Evan Hull with a few more routes run than Deion Jackson. What's your takeaway overall as far as that backfield and how that's going to shake out behind what we assume is going to be Jonathan Taylor when he comes back?
So I'd assume if Jonathan Taylor comes back, I don't know how much run either Evan Hull or Deion Jackson are going to get, just based on how we feel like this offense is going to run itself, Like Jonathan Taylor, if he comes back, he should also get some receiving work, but also how much receiving work is there to go around for running backs in this offense with Anthony Richardson at quarterback? So their value tanks significantly for me if Jonathan Taylor's back. There are probably some people, like, I'm definitely not drafting either of these two. They're just sitting in They're two people that I'm having, and I'm waiting to see if something happens to Jonathan Taylor. That's the only reason I would ever have any of those two on my team.
Yeah, agreed. And the only other takeaway that I have from a dynasty perspective is that Josh Downs, I think, looked really good, and
Mhm.
Isaiah McKenzie, who's currently the starting slot receiver, did not look very good.
Mhm.
So there's definitely potential there for Downs to overtake him early on in the season.
Definitely agree. And then taking a look at the Jets Carolina Panthers game. Let's take a look, see what they got here. Carolina Panthers complicated wide receiver room. Why is it
We knew that.
complicated? Yeah, I was.
Well, yeah, there's just the same conglomerate of players there that we're not sure where they kind of stack up. And honestly, preseason game didn't do too much to reassure us one way or the other.
Yeah, it didn't separate anybody. How do we feel about Bryce Young on his first three
I thought he
drives?
looked good.
I thought so too.
I thought
I
he
thought
looked
he looked
good.
comfortable. You know.
Yeah, yeah. He did what we saw from him in college. He was on time, in rhythm. He was accurate. And if there was any concerns, I mean, it's 1 week obviously, and it's more of a his size was more of a season hits build up. But we saw him hang in the pocket and take some hits and still deliver accurate balls. So he's certainly not scared in there.
Hmm.
Yeah, I am encouraged by what we saw from Bryce.
Yeah, and that's all I really got to talk about with them over there. Michael Carter, and Zonovan Knight, they split time with the starters because Brees Hall wasn't playing in the preseason. Shocker. Um, but I mean, other than that, how do we feel about Israel Abanikanda?
He looked explosive. We saw a little bit of the upside that we hoped to see from him in this game versus what we saw in the Hall of Fame game. So that was kind of encouraging. But behind Brees Hall, it's going to be tough to expect anyone to produce. Zonovan Knight looked good last year. Michael Carter has clearly gotten the backing of the team. I'm not very encouraged about what the workload is going to look like for Abanikanda back there. The only other thing that I wanted to bring up is just that it was encouraging to see Corey Davis on the field, returning
Hmm.
from the injury. I think he has potential to be more involved than people are kind of giving him credit for. Alan Lazard, I just don't think he's good. He had every opportunity to be the wide receiver one last year in Green Bay. Didn't make it happen. Mecole Hardman, he's had his opportunities and hasn't done much. Corey Davis has actually been low-key productive on this team, even with the bad quarterback play when he's been on the field. So if he's out there, he led the team in routes run and snaps and stuff like that. So I expect him to do fairly decent.
Yeah, I expect him to be pretty involved, like you said. People forget, Corey Davis, former first round pick, right? Former first
Yeah,
round pick. He's a talented dude. When
yeah,
he's out there on the field, he can get it done. He just hasn't been out there on the field a lot his whole career. But when he's out there, he's
right,
pretty good. Especially with Aaron Rodgers, he's gonna have the best quarterback of his career back there throwing the ball to him.
for sure.
Then there's no other real news. I don't want to talk about Jets tight ends. Uh, and then Miles Sanders, he tweaked his groin in practice. They told him, I think the
Oh yeah,
statement was that if this was a real game, he would have played, but they kept him out because it was the preseason.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, groin injuries concerning any of the lower extremity soft tissue out for, but we still got about 3 weeks left, so not so bad.
Yeah, he's got some time to recover, and like we said, they're sitting him. So,
Yeah.
taking a look at the next game, Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cowboys. We actually got an opportunity to see the starting team for the Jaguars play, which was nice.
Yep.
Christian Kirk was restricted to the slot. So the one thing we kind of saw was that the person who was the odd man out in this whole shuffle ended up being Christian Kirk of all people.
Surprisingly, but yeah, like from just a body type perspective, it makes sense that he would be the outside wide receiver in two wide receiver sets. But from a talent perspective, we thought that he had a shot at that. But Zay Jones was the guy opposite of Calvin Ridley in two wide receiver sets. Christian Kirk only really getting run in three wide receiver sets. I think they're going to do plenty of that. I think there's going to be a lot of three wide receiver sets run for the Jaguars this season. So I'm not, you know, jumping ship with Christian Kirk yet, but it's scary to see.
Yeah, it's definitely not an indicator for him getting more volume, for sure. Um,
Yeah.
and then taking a look at the rest of the people who played, Mr. Tank Bigsby was actually the only rookie running back to mix in with the starting running back when the starting running back actually played in a game. So him and Travis Etienne played alongside each other with Travis Etienne still to play more.
Yeah.
So Tank Bigsby kind of proven what we said, where we think he's going to be a little bit more involved than people are giving him credit for. The fact he's running with the starters this early and mixing in with Travis Etienne, that's a pretty big indicator.
Yeah, absolutely. I do expect him to be not only involved for this team just from an NFL perspective, but I think fantasy wise he could be a difference maker with standalone value along with Travis Etienne.
Especially down the stretch.
Yeah. And then on the Cowboys side of the ball, there wasn't too much takeaway, but I think the biggest one was Jake Ferguson being the Cowboys' lead tight end. Obviously, they drafted Luke Schoonmaker fairly early, injury. And Jake Ferguson has shined in his opportunity not only in training camp but now in preseason. I think he's going to be a late round steal as well, but that might kind of change as his ADP rises now that it's clear that he is the one there.
Yeah, definitely agree there. Moving on to the next game, we got the Eagles and the Ravens. So this one was confusing for us because we talked about it a little bit in wait, no, we haven't yet. That video's not out. Let me not talk about that.
There have been a couple of videos. I think we did talk about it slightly in the mock draft video that's going to be out already.
Yeah, we did.
And then we talk about it again in a video that's going to come out later. It's all convoluted, but I'm assuming we're talking about the Philadelphia backfield, yeah?
Yes, the Philadelphia backfield and the hodgepodge that it is because Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott got the night off, but DeAndre Swift started and Rashad Penny played in the second quarter. Kenneth Gainwell, early down back apparently.
Yeah, the team coming out and saying that Kenneth Gainwell is the starter and the early down back is so weird. Like, obviously they love Kenny Gainwell. He's their guy. They're going to support him. So I get that. But why are we lying to the people? There's no need to lie. This is crazy. The only reason that we saw this type of split as far as preseason work is because Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott have played for the team for years.
Yeah.
They don't need the preseason reps. But all the guys that were new to the team, DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny, they do need the reps with the team. So, of course, they're going to play in the preseason. That's my only takeaway here.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And these are some crazy headlines under here. This suggests it should be Gainwell and Scott getting drafted early. Okay. No, it does not indicate that. Do not listen to them. That's cap.
No.
Somebody I was really excited to see, and he didn't really have an official target, but it was still a kind of exciting play. Mr. Zay Flowers, he caught a backwards pass.
Mm-hmm.
I think he only got like 1 yard, but it was a shifty 1 yard. You know what I'm saying?
Made a guy miss.
Yeah,
Good.
Yeah. And he had 2 targets that led to defensive penalties. So, again, also showing that people are having a tough time covering him without, fouling him. So that is a good indicator for him. It's interesting to see that he was used outside as well as being used in the slot, too. So they have been moving him around the field. They did say they were going to get creative with how they use Zay Flowers. And I'm kind of excited to see just how creative they can get with a player like him because he is as explosive and as electric as he is. But
sure.
In terms of other takeaways, did you have anything else from this game?
Just briefly wanted to mention that Justice Hill received every snap of the first 2 drives and was on the field before Gus Edwards got his offensive snaps. Wouldn't have expected that necessarily. Gus Edwards has been kind of the number 2 for this team for the past couple of years. Do you think that this is indicative of a change in the pecking order?
Possibly. It possibly could be just because of the fact that the offense is changing the way that it is as well. It possibly might suit a player more like Justice Hill than a player like Gus Edwards because, with Todd Monken possibly opening up the passing offense and stuff like that, someone like Justice Hill would be more valuable out there on the field than a Gus Edwards. So it would make sense, possibly, if that's what they're looking to change.
Yeah, definitely something to monitor there. Gus Edwards was a guy that I was kind of targeting super late in drafts, just as not only a handcuff, but, we've seen him involved with standalone value throughout the past couple seasons, but that might be changing. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Then moving to the Chargers-Rams game. Let's see. Mr. Tutu Atwell is a favorite for this Rams wide receiver 3 job. Okay, cool.
I don't even think that's the truth.
I don't either, honestly.
I think that's a
lie. Joshua Kelly's ahead of Isaiah Spiller. Nice.
We knew that.
Quentin Johnston played. Yeah, so not much in the way of news from this game, it's looking like.
I think Quentin Johnston got a little too much hate from this game. Another instance of, drops not really mattering that much. And also, tough to really consider the play that people are referring to as a drop. It was just really good coverage and a tough adjustment they've had to make to catch the ball. You want to see him come down with it, but like, I'm not gonna hold that too strongly against Quentin Johnston. He looked pretty good. He's got a long way to go in terms of being a more well-rounded receiver in terms of route running and creating separation. But he looked good athletically. He caught a touchdown pass in this game. I think he's going to be involved fairly early on.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's all I've really got for this game right here.
Real quickly, we can basically breeze over it. But Puka Nacua, for dynasty purposes, 11 snaps, tied for the team lead. 8 routes run, also tied for the team lead. 2 targets and a touchdown. Fairly encouraging to see out of him. I didn't go through and watch all of this game, so there were lots of receivers seeing time on the field. But stats-wise, encouraging to see from Puka.
Yeah, for sure. Taking a look at the next one, we got the Kansas City Chiefs and the New Orleans Saints. We got an opportunity to see the Chiefs starters out there as well. Mr. Patrick Mahomes threw a couple passes. Wasn't actually expecting to see that. That was kind of cool. But in terms of routes ran, Marquez Valdes-Scantling led the wide receiver group, which was weird to see. But we still saw just about everybody get some burn in terms of these receivers. Everybody got an opportunity that day. Sky Moore obviously got to play a little bit. Justin Watson, Rashee Rice got some burn. Kadarius Toney's hurt, so he wasn't out there, obviously. But I feel like they were spreading the ball out a lot in terms of getting it out to a lot of different people.
Which carry over from last season, we're going to see a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
And I think what we saw as far as who started specifically in 2 wide receiver sets has carried over from what we heard from the training camp. It was MVS and Sky Moore out there, and I expect that to be the case heading into the regular season. MVS could be doing a lot of wind sprinting again this year.
Yeah.
He's going to be out there, but not sure how involved he's going to be. If I had to pick one other guy in this offense to make a bet on, it's Sky Moore, and I think that's reflected by ADP and just public sentiment from the fantasy community, but encouraging to see him out there in 2 wide receiver sets.
Absolutely. Also, Clyde Edwards-Helaire started instead of Jerick McKinnon. Obviously, Isaiah Pacheco, he's still out. He hasn't been cleared yet for contact, so he wasn't able to get the start. But I believe it's going to be Isaiah Pacheco when he is back healthy, and I think everything's kind of pointed towards that. Isaiah Pacheco also getting more involved in like passing drills and stuff at camp as well. Catching some over-the-shoulder wheel routes and stuff, and something I haven't seen from him before.
You buying into that?
No, but it was cool to see.
Yeah, agreed. On the other side of the ball, talking about New Orleans, we got maybe a little bit of clarity when it came to the tight end room. We've been talking about how crowded the tight end room is here with Juwan Johnson, Austin Moreau, Taysom Hill, and now Jimmy Graham added to the team. It was good to see that our favorite, Juwan Johnson, seems to be the top target there, at least when it comes to receiving work. All the other guys got mixed in, but Juwan Johnson got the most run and the most looks in the passing game.
So Kendre Miller also left this game with the knee sprain as well.
Yeah, that's actually really big news when it comes to how things are going to shake out for that backfield. I think that probably this training camp and preseason work is huge for rookie running backs specifically to earn the trust of their teams. And so he sat out a significant portion of training camp coming back from the MCL injury, and now he's got another knee sprain. I think this sets him back tremendously. Jamal Williams is probably a value in draft, and Alvin Kamara is only going to have to overtake one player probably when he comes back after his 3-game suspension.
Hey, and also I would not be surprised if weeks 1 through 3, Taysom season, baby. Fire it up.
Boy.
Fire it up. Taysom season. You heard it here first. Weeks 1 through 3, Taysom season, baby.
Draft him and trade him.
Then we're going to move on to the next game out of that one right there. We got the 49ers and the Las Vegas Raiders. I actually didn't catch much of this game personally myself. I saw Trey Lance did get some burn, but didn't really look great.
Yeah, it was unfortunate for the channel. I also didn't catch this game. I was hoping we could get some reaction out of you. All I saw was the Twitter reaction from Trey Lance, and it was not positive.
No.
He had that crazy fluke touchdown that was like in both hands of the cornerback, like an easy interception that bounced off of him and went to another receiver. But yeah, not very encouraging from any of the quarterbacks really.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be a while before the NFL takes a look at North Dakota State again. When it turns for quarterbacks, it might be a little bit, to be honest with you. I
Yeah,
was hoping that he'd take a step up, but I don't think I think he's got to go to a whole new situation, and he's got to be built up from the ground up because he does not look confident out there.
yeah.
All around, it just doesn't look great. So I think that is Brock Purdy's team for the most part, and then Sam Darnold if they need the relief. But I think the Trey Lance experiment, it's coming to a close from what I've seen.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Upside was there, but yeah, not working out at least so far. On the other side of the ball for the Raiders, it was pretty clear who the backup is uh, if Josh Jacobs does come back to the team, and that's Zamir White. Out of the reps that were to be had with the quote unquote first team, there weren't really many starters out there, but the first guys
Hmm.
to be on the field, Zamir White got 20 of the 23 snaps. He also had 5 routes run, which was a little encouraging, kind of unexpected from a guy like Zamir White, and 13 carries as well. So he's clearly the guy to own there behind Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, definitely agree there. And that's going to round up our list with all the games right there. Yeah, if there's anything that you feel like we missed, any takes that you think we got wrong, anything like that, sound off in the comments down below because this is the first real action we've seen. We got to actually see these players perform. What did you think about the performances? Am I being too harsh on Trey Lance? Let me know down below. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way you know whenever we drop our latest videos. We got a running back tier list coming up this week, so that should be a lot of fun right there. And Eric, you got anything for the people before we roll out?
Just go check that description below. We got some other links down there could interest you. Obviously, if you want to engage with us, hit the comments first, but there's also a link to our Discord if you want to join that community. We got some really smart people over there talking Dynasty, talking redraft, all sorts of good stuff, making each other better every single day. So if you want to join us over there, that would be great. Also, some of our sponsors. We got Dynasty Owner. If you're interested in a kind of unique Dynasty experience, they have a patent on using real life NFL salaries, which is pretty cool, and we're on the site. We've enjoyed it so far. We have a discount code to get 20% off your sign up there. Also, we're partnered with the Fantasy Football League winners. They brought in a bunch of new talent when it comes to writers as well as other content creators. If you're, not getting your fill of content from us, I would highly suggest to get ready for your fantasy season. In conjunction with our partnership with them, we are also partnered with Underdog Fantasy, and you can use our promo code FFLW to get a 100% deposit match. Double your money over there on Underdog if you are a first-time depositor. And lastly, our sponsorship with Do Numbers. If you're interested in some really cool apparel, I think Will's wearing one of the hoodies right now. We got hoodies, t-shirts, hats, all sorts of stuff. So go over there, check Do Numbers out, and use our promo code to get 15% off your order. But yeah, I think that'll round things out. If you stuck with us all the way to the end, as always, we love you, and we will catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.